Hi, this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Our guest today is best-selling author and psychiatrist, Dr. Judith Orloff. Dr. Orloff is an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA. She is the author of the bestsellers, Emotional Freedom, Positive Energy, Intuitive Healing, and Second Sight. Good morning, Dr. Orloff. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Dr. Orloff, you have a book that's out now called Emotional Freedom. And in the book, you share a wonderful story that you say captures the essence of emotional freedom. And the story is this. A chief is talking to his tribe about two dogs inside his mind. One, a white dog that is good and courageous. The other, a black dog that is vengeful and angry. Both dogs are fighting to the death. A young brave, unable to wait for the end of the story, asks, which one will win? The chief responds, the one I feed. Why does that capture the essence of emotional freedom? And then to follow up, if you could tell us exactly what is emotional freedom?
Yes, I love that story. I'm so happy that you read it because that is the essence of the energy behind the book. That story really says that we have a choice over our attitudes and what we feed in ourselves. We can feed the darkness and the fear within us, or we can feed our positive side that is filled with hope and joy. And so emotional freedom is about being able to have a choice about how you respond in any given situation rather than just reacting. It's also a path to use emotions as a path to spiritual and intuitive awakening rather than just simply a cause of suffering or difficulties that need to be removed. Because as a psychiatrist, I was trained at UCLA and USC. We were taught that there was a biological component to emotions, and I was taught to give out medication to treat that. But in Emotional Freedom, I talk about the biological components of emotion, but go beyond to talk about the spirituality, the energy medicine aspects, the psychology, and the intuitive aspects of the emotions that elevates them to a dignity that I think dealing with just the biochemical elements does not.
You know, Dr. Orloff, and we'll talk about this later in greater depth, but I want to follow up at this point. Do you think that's what's happening or what's wrong with our treatment of people that have anxiety or depression? Are we only treating the side with the drugs and not really getting to the core of what's happening?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think psychiatry has turned into a prescription mill, and that it's a travesty for patients because they come in for 15 minutes with severe symptoms and only get a prescription for medication. And not only are the psychological aspects not dealt with, there's no psychotherapy whatsoever, the spiritual underpinnings of each emotional experience is not even addressed. When I was going through my training at UCLA and USC, which I really revere, and it was one of the most important things I've ever gone through in my life, and I use traditional medical knowledge all the time, but they omit the spiritual meaning of emotions, and that's the essence of it. I look at it that we're here on earth to develop our souls, and part of that is that in the human bodies we're given emotions. Emotions are energy. Different emotions have different energy. For instance, fear has one energy, frustration another, and I go through all these in the book, but you have to learn how to work with these different energies so they don't get you, and it's really a spiritual mastery to learn how to work with this. That's why I wanted to give people concrete strategies about how to deal with each emotion from different points of view so they can, look at it as their practice. It's an ongoing practice that frees you so you don't have all these built-up negative emotions inside of you. You don't want those. You can never be free with them.
And how do we benefit from emotional freedom?
What happens, and I practice the principles of this book. I actually read this book to remind myself, because I forget too, But what happens when you begin to free yourself little by little from old negative patterns that don't serve you is that it frees up more space inside. So you have more spaciousness and room for wonder, for the lightness of being, for joy, to be in the moment, for gratitude. You only have so much space inside, and if it's all being clogged up by fear and negativity, because fear can really push out everything else. It wants to take up all your space. And you don't want to allow that, your psychic space, and physical and the body space. You don't want to allow that. And as you become more of a master of these energies called emotions, then you have more and more freedom where you're not bound by them. But people who don't do this and who just let resentments, anger build up over time, they don't age very well. They get very heavy, in terms of their energy, and they get crunched over. And there's no way you can have freedom and graceful aging unless you do this, because the body isn't made to carry around all these negative emotions. And that's why I wanted to write the book, was to help people, if they're interested in freedom, as I am, to find it. We deserve to find it, but it isn't something that I think you can just find your own way into. That I found as a psychiatrist, strategies are necessary in order to promote that sense of freedom within.
You said that you believe that a defining moment of emotional freedom is when you begin to become more conscious of who you are and what your motivations are. How can we achieve this?
You can achieve that by sensing in yourself if you have a desire to be free. And if there's something in you that's attracted to something beautiful and more, if you're attracted to love, if you're attracted to that freedom, if you're attracted to not carrying around all this emotional weight with you, then you can move towards emotional freedom. But it takes a certain awareness. And that's why in the book I reframe everything in terms of how you look at emotions. And you have to look at them from a mindful, compassionate way and look at them as teachers to how they can help your heart to grow. You see, the basis of all this is that your heart opens. You see, you have to treat yourself with self-compassion, and you have to learn to treat others, from the power of the heart. That doesn't mean you're a doormat, and there's certainly a chapter on emotional vampires, draining people, and how to deal with them. But you approach them always from the heart, not through revenge or not through negativity. And what that does is that frees you. If you hold on to resentments, even if you're right, that's your prison.
In your book, you have a test, and you say that it's important for us to kind of understand the type of person we are and how we deal with emotions. Can you quickly go through the way you classify the people and how we handle and we respond to what other people do to us?
Yes, there are 4 emotional types that I talk about in the book, and it's important to know about your type so that you know your strong points and your weak points and know what to heal, because all the types have positive and negative attributes. The types include the intellectual, and this is somebody who is very much in their head and loves to analyze and find solutions, intellectual solutions, and always likes to find whatever they can debate about, and they're very much in the head. Mm-hmm. And brilliant minds, but they tend to be out of touch with their bodies, so they tend to be very heady or disembodied heads. And they tend to lack empathy when someone else is going through an emotional reaction. For instance, I work with couples, and if one is an intellectual and the other is more emotionally open, the intellectual always wants to fix the problem immediately. Mm-hmm. And that is the wrong thing to do with somebody who's going through emotion. What they want to do is have empathy. You see, so just that one little trick for intellectuals to learn not to try and fix the problem so quickly if their partner is going through something emotional can make a huge difference in a relationship. The second type would be the emotional empath, and this is the emotional sponge. This is the type I identify with for my own body. And the emotional sponge is intuitive and open and sensitive and loving, but they're porous, and they tend to absorb the energy of the world, especially the negative energy, and become exhausted by it because they're sponges. If they get around somebody in tremendous pain, there's this part of them that instinctively wants to take that pain into their own body, to take it away from somebody else. Mm-hmm. That's empathic. That's an empath beyond just normal empathy where your heart goes out to somebody, because you empathize. Emotional empaths literally take that emotion into their own body and suffer because of it. Right. And so part of what I teach in emotional freedom is being able to learn how to set clear limits and boundaries with people, especially emotional vampires, so that they don't drain your energy, so that you don't absorb the negative, but you do absorb the positive, so that you can absorb all the love, all the joy, all the communion, and whatever goes on in life. But, have strategies to deal with more difficult energies so that you don't take it into your body. The empath, this is how I describe it in the book. It's like an empath is holding something in their hand with 50 fingers, compared to another emotional type where they're just holding it with, one. They just have very increased sensitivity, which I encourage everyone to develop. As when I was a child, my mother, who was a doctor, my father was a doctor, and I had 25 physicians in my family, whole lineage. My mother used to say to me, "Oh, dear, you just need a thick enough skin." So that's not the answer. That kind of comment will shut an empath off, will shut intuition off, and that's not the answer. The answer is learning how to set clear limits and boundaries, learning how to shield, learning how to protect your energy so that you don't take on the stress of the world. These are concrete skills you can learn.
Okay, so we have the intellectual, the empath, and what would our third one be?
The third type is the gusher. And the gusher is somebody who's very in touch with their emotions. They know instantly what they're feeling, and they almost instantly pick up the phone to share it with a friend. So the positive aspect of the gusher is that they don't keep anything in. But the negative aspect is that they tend to become a drama queen or drama king and overshare. So let's say you're in the supermarket and they grab you and share their whole life story, which will burn people out. You don't want to do that. So the gusher has to learn how to pause a little bit before sharing, go inward, listen to intuition, try and find the solution on your own. And just a little tweaking is all that's involved. So that is the gusher.
Okay.
And then the fourth type is the rock. And the rock is somebody who's strong and steady and there for you, and very, very solid person. But they tend to be a little boring. The mate is always complaining that the rock never expresses his or her emotions. And always trying to get the rock to express their emotions. And so for the rock, it's important to learn to ignite their passion rather than just be there for other people. And this involves getting in touch with their sexuality and also their emotions, where I suggest to the rock to express a feeling a day. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm miserable, whatever, but get in the habit of coming out of the rock's, guarded place and expressing emotions more just to balance it. But the rocks are wonderful partners for empaths because, they balance the sensitivity to everything in the world with a very solid groundedness.
Doctor, how do you know which one you are? Because as you're describing them, I see myself fitting into different categories. So how do we really get a sense for the way we process our emotions?
Well, your basic type is the one that you revert to during stress. And then the whole goal is, and the reason I'm presenting this in a chapter in the book, is so that people can find out what their type is and then incorporate the best qualities of other types into their type. Like, for instance, during stress, I revert into being an empath. And an empath is somebody who replenishes their energy by being alone. So that's what I do. I want to go home. I want to take my own car places. I want to go home. That's just where I go during stress because I know I can replenish myself with my own energy. Whereas the gusher will go out with people during stress. Now, that's the first impulse, is to go be with the friends. You see, so your main type is what you revert to during stress, what you feel most natural with, most comfortable with. The intellectual might retreat into the mind, to try and find a logical answer because that's what they're most comfortable with. The rock will retreat into being there for you. So it just depends.
Dr. Orloff, we're going to let our listeners think for a moment about what you just said while we take a break for our sponsors. I'm Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. We'll be right back. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a monthly free digital magazine that can be mailed to your inbox or read online at CYACYL.com. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their fields, such as Joel Osteen, Shaun T., Tanya Brown, Ed and Deb Shapiro, Food Network's Robert Irvine, plus many others, provide the tools that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Take the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit CYACYL.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's CYACYL.com. Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman, and our guest today is Dr. Judith Orloff. Dr. Orloff is an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA, and she is the author of the best-selling books Emotional Freedom, Positive Energy, Intuitive Healing, and Second Sight. Dr. Orloff, as a scientist, you believe that we need to blend science with our intuition. Can you give us a little sense as to why you feel this is important? And please explain to us exactly what intuition is.
All right. Well, in Emotional Freedom, I talk about the value of the mind to analyze problems, but also the value of intuition. And the mind and intuition can balance one another. Intuition is the still small voice inside that will tell you the truth about things. It could come through as a gut feeling. It could come through as a flash, an image, a voice, a knowing, a kinesthetic knowing, depending on how you perceive intuitions. You know, there's a whole chapter in Emotional Freedom on the revolutionary states of dreams and sleep, because dreams are a potent form of intuition that you can access every night. And I have a technique for how to remember dreams in the book. But intuition, with all the ways it comes in that I just described, are valuable kind of input for information. And so if you block all those out and only listen to the mind, you're not listening to most of the information and the wisdom and the guidance that could come into you. I mean, even just as simple as listen to your gut feeling about somebody. You know, I have a chapter on emotional vampires in Emotional Freedom, and in the chapter I talk about taking an inventory of the positive and negative people in your life, or the people who give you energy or the people who suck it dry. And this is an intuition. This is a body's intuition. Intuition is about sensing how you energetically relate to other people. It's a very basic intuition that everybody can relate to. Just think if you didn't listen to it. I mean, many people don't, as they just go by what looks good on paper. You know, let's say someone is attractive and funny and intelligent and all your friends like him. No, and he looks fine and he acts fine, but yet you feel drained around this person. No, you don't want to marry them, you know, because energetic compatibility is very important, and your intuition will tell you that. It will also tell you who gives you energy and who saps it, so that you can create a positive circle around you in your life. You see, it's invaluable. As a psychiatrist, I combine intuition with everything I do. When patients come in, I listen with all my scientific knowledge that I have, which I value, but I also am moment to moment listening to my intuition. You know, the impressions, the gut feelings, the images, the knowings, you know, any kind of flashes I get, anything. It's very creative. It's like intuition is a lot like creative flow, where if you just try and do a creative project with your head, you're not really going to get very far. But if you can open up to the free flow of creativity, intuition is a lot like that.
Now, you said this is a skill that we all have to some degree. Is it something that we can hone in and cultivate?
Yes, that is what I teach people in all my books. And in Emotional Freedom, I talk about it with how to use intuition to empower your emotional life, what it can teach you about emotions. But intuition, I mean, let's say you don't think you have it. You know, just ask yourself, who does my energy go up around? Who does my energy go down around? That's a very easy thing for people to do. So if you do that, that's listening to your intuition. I mean, just on that very basic level.
Well, isn't it even just something as basic as when you meet someone for the first time and you walk away and you just feel good? And that would be that person has a positive energy. Is that correct?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's your intuition.
So people always think that it has to be some type of a psychic foreshadowing. It's really something just how you feel around someone, or if you think, I'm going to make this decision, but, that knot in the stomach, those are all signals that we get. A lot of times we ignore. So you're saying that we need to start to pay more attention to those things, and it can help guide us.
Exactly right, and especially about people. Because just think if you listened, how you can save years of torment getting involved with the wrong people.
Well, yeah, because our head tells us one thing. We don't listen. We don't want to believe it. It's more cognitive, and you're saying to put that aside.
Yeah, that's a good point. The head doesn't want to believe some of it because the head doesn't have the perceptual insight that intuition has.
So how can we learn to do this? The first thing, obviously, is to become aware of it. But how can we start to tune into this more and let it play a bigger role in our lives?
Well, the first thing I suggest is, if you want to learn about your emotions and become smart about them and insightful about them, go around just for one day and ask yourself, who increases my energy, who decreases my energy, and keep a journal of it. And then recognize that that's your intuition, all right? And then notice also if you get a red flag around someone. Mm-hmm. Sometimes your gut or your instincts will tell you, this doesn't feel right. Stay away. This doesn't feel right. It could be a job. I mean, I've worked with patients who I live in Los Angeles, so I work a lot with patients in Hollywood in the entertainment industry, so they get offered an awful lot of money for what they do. And I had a patient who was offered a lot of money, and it was a big carrot, and in his gut he was saying, "Don't do it. This isn't right. Don't do it." Mm-hmm. And to his, credit, he didn't take it. And it turned out that, it would have been a horrible decision had he gone forward with it, because the movie was a big flop and everyone was in turmoil. And so, he did listen to his gut. It's hard, though, when you have these carrots, especially in these economic times where, let's say you do get a job offer, but you go into the office or you go into the environment and it does not feel good. Your intuition is saying, you're not going to be happy here. Then what do?
You talk about a four-pronged approach for transforming difficult emotions, and you believe that the 7 most difficult emotions are fear, frustration, loneliness, anxiety, depression, jealousy, and anger. What is your four-pronged approach to dealing with these emotions?
Well, I've devoted a chapter to each of those emotions, and again, it's transforming emotions, such as transforming fear with courage, transforming anger with compassion. And my four-pronged approach is that with each emotion, as you're learning the strategies, I talk about how to harness your biology with that emotion so you're not burned out by your stress response, and you learn how to increase your blissful endorphins, which is what you want to do, and that's a skill that you can learn. 2, look at the spiritual meaning of the emotion. What are you supposed to learn from this? How can this emotion help you to grow? 3, look at the energetic power of the emotion, which is how do I work with the energy of this emotion so I can be on top of it. And 4, how to deal with the psychological perspective with emotions. Sometimes it means going back into your past and looking at your childhood or looking at your parents. And maybe you were raised by alcoholic parents who traumatized you. It's important to go back and look and process it to a certain degree so that it's not subterranean in you. You want to make everything aware and mindful, and then you can work with it so you can free yourself. So the biology, the psychology, the spirituality, and the energy of the emotion is the four-pronged approach to each one.
And for our listeners who would like to get more information about everything we spoke about today, you can pick up a copy of Dr. Judith Orloff's book, Emotional Freedom, Liberate Yourself from Negative Emotions and Transform Your Life. Dr. Orloff, what is your website that people can visit to get more information about you and your work?
My website is drjudithorloff.com.
And as always, our listeners can visit our website, which is CYACYL.com, which stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on our website, please listen to past shows as podcasts, sign up for our mailing list, and read our new free digital magazine. And I'm very happy to announce that Dr. Orloff's column premiered in the March issue of CYACYL 24/7, and we're looking forward to having her write for us each month. So please visit our website to read her column and to read the magazine, and to also follow our show on Facebook. So again, Dr. Orloff, thank you for being here, and I wish you the best.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure to be on your show.
This is Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for tuning in.